Hello and welcome. This is Tigrai Television English service coming to you live from Maqala. I'm Lalam Tejana with today's news, and now I'll proceed to the details. Tigray University Scholars Association and Tigray Human Rights Advocacy Network sent a letter to the African Union Commission on Human and People's Rights this Saturday, calling on the Commission to speak up for the more than 100,000 federal government employees in Tigray that have not been paid their salary for a year now. The organizations emphasize that these employees have also been denied access to vital services such as telecommunication and banking, a human right. The organizations asked the Commission to play its part to ensure that Tigrans and compel the Ethiopian government to restore these essential services. Abil Zago reports.
Tigray University Scholars Association and Tigray Human Rights Advocacy Network sent a joint letter to the African Union Commission on Human and People's Rights regarding the status of more than 100,000 federal government employees in Tigray who have not been paid their salary for over a year. The letter said the federal government employees in Tigray have not been receiving their salaries or other benefits for close to a year, while being denied access to all essential services such as banking, electricity, and health care. The two bodies refer to Article 13 and 17 on the Charter on Human and People's Rights that give all people the right to equal access and the right to education, both of which have been denied to the people of Tigray. The letter emphasized that the physical and mental well-being of government employees in Tigray has been put at risk by the action of the Ethiopian government. The complaint has also stated that the rights of its children and women, the right to family, the right to employment, and the right to access public services have been violated by Ethiopian government for an entire of a year. The organizations finally called on the African Commission on Human and People's Rights to compel the Ethiopian government to pay federal employees their salaries, including compensation for damages sustained in the year, restore essential services without any precondition, and resume the operations of the federal institutions in Tigray by allocating necessary budget to each entity.
Hours after the Togoga airstrike that killed at least 64 civilians and injured dozens more, an image would appear on social media of a young girl, just 2 years old at the time, injured and getting medical treatment at Eider Hospital. Eldana Gabriel was one of the hundreds at the Togoga market that fateful Monday. And while initially she was able to get treatment, the lack of medical supplies due to the siege would take her life almost 9 months after the deadly attack. Our reporter Sarun Tsagai visited Togoga and met with Eldana's parents. Let's take a look.
At a hospital in Tigray's capital, Mekelle, a 2-year-old girl is receiving treatment.
This picture is of Eldana Gabragergis. It was taken when Eldana was just 2 years old. The picture had gone viral on social media and turned Eldana into a symbol of violence innocent Tigrayans were facing on a daily basis by Ethiopian forces and their allies from Eritrea. Eldana was rushed into Eider Hospital just hours after the Togoga massacre. Ethiopian forces, having just faced a major military defeat, had attacked the Togoga marketplace on a Monday, the busiest day of the week, killing 64 civilians and injuring dozens more, including Eldana. Eldana, unfortunately, while having survived the airstrike, could not get sufficient medical treatment and passed away on April 11, just 3 months ahead of the 1-year anniversary of the massacre. Gabragergis Hailu is Eldana's father. He says he was at the marketplace with his wife and children at that fateful day.
The
bomber jet came at 1 p.m. I heard the sound of the jet coming from afar, and so I told the purchaser in the market to take cover. But before I could complete my sentence, the jet dropped a bomb, and we all fell to the ground. My wife, my daughter, Eldana, and my son were there as well. We couldn't see anything at first. After a bit, I saw Eldana buried under a glass, and I picked her up. I thought she was fine at first, but then I noticed she was injured on her left side.
Gabragergis tells us he couldn't get his daughter to the hospital in time because Ethiopian forces had barred anyone from leaving and wouldn't allow ambulances to come near the area. He tells us her mother was carrying Eldana on her back as she bled excessively.
My wife and I started running with Eldana on our arm. We went halfway to the road and found a car passing by. We begged the driver to take us to a hospital, and he took my wife and Eldana. But they were stopped at a place called Mayambesa by members of the Ethiopian National Defense Forces. and were told to go back. My wife refused and got off the car. There were also Red Cross ambulances there. After hours, they were allowed to pass, and Eldana went to a hospital in one of the ambulances.
While Eldana initially had access to medical treatment, the siege that has followed had made it impossible for her to continue to get the treatment she so badly needed, and led to her death almost 9 months after the deadly airstrike.
She wasn't able to get treatment at the time because the hospitals ran out of medical supplies. She wasn't thoroughly checked. She was feeling pain in an area where she had had surgery. We became concerned and took her to the hospital, but the doctor told me she wasn't able to do anything as there was no medication available. So he told me to bring her if her condition got worse. After that, she started getting sick. She started having constipation and vomiting. Then I took her to Maqala Hospital. They told me it was beyond their capacity and referred me to either comprehensive specialist hospital. We couldn't find medication even there.
While it may have been a year since the Togoga massacre, the marketplace looks almost exactly as it did a year earlier. Shattered glass, destroyed houses, items of victims lying on the ground still. But just as the marketplace is yet to heal, so are the loved ones of victims, whose lives have been forever changed by a deadly airstrike for which the Ethiopian government is yet to take any accountability.
Global Society of Tigray Scholars and Professionals sent a letter to U.S. Charity Affairs Ambassador Tracy Ann Jacobson on Friday, expressing concern on the embassy's handling of the crisis in Tigray and Ethiopia. The society asked that the embassy refrain from any actions that could assist the Ethiopian government in maintaining a deceptive facade that gives permission to the Ethiopian government to continue violating international humanitarian and human rights law with impunity. For more, Abil Zagawa reports.
On Friday, the Global Society of Tigray Scholars and Professionals sent a correspondence to U.S. Embassy Charge d'Affaires Ambassador Tracy Ann Jacobson to state concerns on the embassy's handling of the crisis in Tigray and Ethiopia. GST said that it is deeply concerned by international communities colluding with Ethiopian government's endeavors to maintain a deceptive facade that has given permission to the Ethiopian government to continue violating international humanitarian and human rights law with impunity. Recalling the ambassador's travel to different parts of Ethiopia but failure to do the same thing to Tigray, the correspondence stressed on the need to see and feel the crisis in Tigray, calling the situation in the state more critical than in any other place in the country or the world at large. The society also stated its concerns on the establishment of new inter-ministerial task force led by the Ethiopian government's Ministry of Justice, Gideon Timotheos, and said it is continuation to Ethiopia's government effort to frustrate international and independent investigations of human rights abuses. The correspondent said Gideon and his ministry lacks the impartiality, credibility, and confidence of the affected community to preside over the country's principal justice institution while tens of thousands of Tigrayans have been killed, imprisoned with no evidence of wrongdoings, as the whole of Tigray was denied basic needs and services. The society called on the embassy to play its part to ensure that justice will not be used as a tool for political ends and support international and independent investigation to human rights violation in Tigray.
Professor Mituku Haile, founder and the first president of Maqala University, was awarded the World Agriculture Laureate Award for 2021 by Global Confederation of Higher Education Associations in Agricultural and Life Sciences. The professor was recognized for his role in promoting sustainable agriculture and rural development. An event was earlier today to recognize the role of the professor in his decades-long career. For more, Sarah Kalali has the details.
Professor Mituku Haile, founder of Maqala University and its first president, has been awarded the 2021 World Agriculture Laureate by the Global Confederation of Higher Associations in Agriculture and Life Sciences for his work in promoting sustainable development in Tigray and other parts of Ethiopia.
Receiving this award at such a time, it feels like I'm receiving it on behalf of the people of Tigray and Maqala University. When I started my career in agriculture, I realized early on that You have to give to your community. That's when you get the best outcome. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone that I have worked with. They all deserve recognition.
Professor Mutuku is the founding father and first president of Mekelle University from its opening in 2002 to 2011. Before this role, he was an associate dean of School of Graduate Studies and academic vice president at Haromaya University, the leading university for agricultural studies in Ethiopia. In 1993, he was appointed dean of the newly established College of Dryland Agriculture and Natural Science in Mekelle, where he began with a meeting under the Momona tree, leading to 3 bachelor programs and 42 students. He later transformed the college into a university college and eventually into Mekelle University. From July 2011 to November 2015, he served as Ethiopia's Deputy Permanent Delegate to UNESCO. Professor Mutuku received his bachelor's in plant science and master's in agronomy from Addis Ababa University and Haromaya University in 1980 and 1983, respectively. The professor completed his PhD in soil science and land evaluation from Ghent University in 1988. Dr. Fana Hagos, president of Mekelle University, presented on the long journey of the university and recognized the exceptional role of the professor.
We are here witnessing history in the making, as the resilient nature of the people of Tigray manifests itself perfectly in our university with the arrival of the news of the award of Laureate Professor Dr. Mutuku Haile. Under his leadership, as the first president of the university for almost 12 years, the university grew from conducting its meeting and office matters under the Momona tree to the university that owns hundreds of buildings erected in its generously provided 6 campuses. From enrolling 42 students at the College of Dryland Agriculture and Natural Resource of the then Mekelle University College, to the growth of intake capacity more than 30,000 students in a year 2021. From a university college that consists of very few academic staff to a full-blown university with more than 2,000 academic staff, 13 of which are with the rank of professorship. From a few undergraduate degrees and diploma level programs to 100 and more undergraduate programs, 13 master's programs, and 43 PhD programs.
Dr. Atinkut Mazgabu, head for Tigray's Bureau of Agriculture, was also present for the ceremony to congratulate the professor for his recognition and acknowledge the exceptional contribution of Professor Mutuku towards improving the livelihood of Tigrayans in the most rural parts of Tigray.
What does this mean for us? It's something we should learn from. As an individual person, he has worked and shown results. From his previous works where he was recognized and thanked for his work, this time he has become someone the world can learn from. Anyone researching in his field will hear the name Professor Mutuku and his birthplace, Tigray, Ethiopia. He has played a major role in the recognition of Tigray, and he worked towards the goal since the beginning, and that's why he is here, because he loves his people, his community.
Lack of fuel that has led to the discontinuation of ambulance services in Tigray is largely affecting mothers and infants who depend on these services to reach hospitals during labor. We visited Mahoni Primary Hospital in Raya Azabo in southern Tigray. Doctors there tell us that despite their tireless efforts to continue providing services, lack of fuel and medication is resulting to easily preventable deaths. For more, Kubro Moldabrahan reports.
Lifti Alam is a resident of Mara in Raya Azabo, southern Tigray. Lifti is a mother of 3. Her mother, Akhaza, tells us that her daughter gave birth to her 2 children at the hospital with the assistance of medical professionals, but her 3rd child was born after the start of the siege, was born at their home and without any medical attention. Akhaza tells us this is because she couldn't find transportation for her daughter to take her to the hospital.
When my daughter's labor started, I went outside to look for a bajaj to take her to the hospital. But all the bajaj drivers told us this wouldn't be possible because there was no fuel. So my daughter had to give birth at home.
Health workers at Mahoni Primary Hospital tells Lifti's story is just one of many. Despite the fact that the hospital has remained open throughout the siege, many have not been able to reach the hospital in time.
አገልጋሎ ሆስፒታል ጉኖ ለይቱ ባልሞ ያለው አብ አድ ጉኖ ወለዲ ወድሞ አዴታት لتا ولد نخولدا بتاع من تناجرا decide يجبرين.
Health workers are always here, and families are ready to do what they can, but lack of ambulance service has meant that it's difficult for many to reach the hospital, and many dying as a result. In some cases, the children are in their wombs and in need of treatment, and in other cases, they make it to the hospital. We don't have medication for those that have lost a lot of blood. We have the know-how, but in most cases, we can't do anything. We're watching our patients die in front of our eyes. It's tragic to watch. We do have the professional qualification, but knowing that we couldn't do anything while our care recipients dying on our watch is tremendously tragic and traumatic experience for us all.
Mulgeta Rodai, the general manager of Mokhoni Primary Hospital, says the hospital has no medication for its patients, especially mothers are not receiving adequate medical follow-up or medication due to siege, and that many mothers are losing their lives while trying to give life.
We lost a mother last week. She had lost a lot of blood on the way. She died as soon as she arrived at the hospital. The mothers whose deaths we know of is much less than the reality on the ground, and many children also dying. Some are dying because we do not have enough oxygen in our intensive care unit.
The year-long siege on Tigray has devastated Tigray's already broken health system. Today it stands a fraction of what it used to be, and far short of what mothers and children in Tigray need.
More than 1 million people have been displaced from their homes in western Tigray. Most have left all their belongings behind and are sheltering in IDP camps across Tigray. One of these families is that of Bisrat Zbahas. Bisrat says she left her home after Ethiopian and Eritrean forces started to attack her hometown. Bisrat, while pregnant and along with other daughters, traveled more than 480 kilometers on foot to deliver her children to safety. But she explains the journeys hasn't been easier since. Wintakirana has the details.
An ethnic cleansing campaign in western Tigray has resulted in the days, torture, and displacement of many. We met Bisrat Atzbaha Aragai in Asr Shu'ata clinic in Maqala. She was displaced from her home in Adabai in western Tigray. She says days after the start of the war on Tigray, Ethiopian forces and their allies from Eritrea started to attack indiscriminately, shelling their village, forcing them to leave their home and their belongings behind in search of shelter and security.
Ethiopian and Eritrean soldiers, along with Fano, started to attack our village. The Eritreans came from behind and the Fano from the left side. We escaped as the town was being shelled. I was pregnant at the time, so I had to travel like that with 2 other children.
Bisrat, along with her 7 and 3 years old children, would walk more than 480 kilometers to reach housing. For days, her and her children would travel long distance with no food, water, or change of clothing.
My journey to Maqala was horrible. We left home empty-handed. We couldn't bring any food or clothes. Everywhere we went, we would find enemy forces. They would kill and rape randomly. I saw bodies being eaten by hyenas. We would go up one hill and then another to save our lives. For 4 months, I couldn't get any sleep. I felt dread that the soldiers would find me and kill my children. We reached housing by foot and then got a ride to Maqala. We arrived here on February 12 of last year.
But even after she arrived in Maqala, Bisrat tells us nothing has been easy. Once a successful businesswoman with big dreams for herself and her children, Bisrat today is no longer able to buy food or medication for her children.
My life in Humura was good. I owned a club and restaurant and had many employees. I support my family and my parents. I worked hard to earn everything I had, but I was forced to leave it all behind. I can't believe I have to beg for food now. I never imagined I could be in a position where I couldn't afford something to eat.
Months later, Bisrat would give birth to her youngest at Aidar Hospital, but that too would not be without its complications.
I gave birth when I was 8 months and 2 weeks pregnant at Eider Hospital. They put my daughter in an incubator because she was delivered early. She couldn't get the medicine she needed because I couldn't afford to buy it for her. So I took her out of the hospital. Even if I had money, I would have preferred to buy bread than any medication.
The ethnic cleansing campaign in Western Tigray has forced many to depend on humanitarian assistance to fulfill even the most basic needs. Assistance that is trickling into Tigray despite the scale of the humanitarian catastrophe that is risking the lives of thousands like Visrat and her 3 children.
The small village of Debre Abai was known for a few around the world before start of the war on Tigray. The small village of Debre Abai was known to few around the world before the start of the war on Tigray. That saw the small village turn into a scene of one of the most horrific massacres in recent memories. On January 7th of 2021, Ethiopian forces would turn their weapons on innocent civilians and kill scores. We met the loved ones of the victims in the village that unfortunately witnessed the gruesome killing of their family members and shared their stories with us. For more, Salome Tigrai has the details.
Father Tatamka Takala is a 94-year-old resident of a village in Debre Abai. Before the start of the war on Tigray, many may not have claimed to know much of this remote and isolated village in northwestern Tigray. That would all change in 2021, when Father Tatamka's village became the scene of one of the deadliest massacres of the conflict. Father Tatamka lost 2 of his children that day. It was January 7. Ethiopian forces were dragging young men out of their homes to shoot and kill them in cold blood.
They kept asking if we knew where Debrecen was. They went house to house. They would remove clothing to check for marks. When they reached our house, my son was having coffee and called him out. My other son was there as well. They didn't give them a chance to say anything. I thought they would speak to them first. They shot them instantly.
Talila Desta is the sister of the victims. She recounts the same horrific story, where her 2 brothers were dragged out of their homes and shot dead by Ethiopian forces.
I
was with my older brother. My other brother was sitting with his father. They brought him out of the house and killed him. Another soldier then took my older brother and killed him. They killed them both right there.
Bekele Haile, another resident of Debre Abai, is also a witness to the horrific atrocities Ethiopian and Eritrean forces committed on Tigrayans. He says the soldiers made him watch as they killed his loved ones and neighbors.
They went house to house and collected civilians. They brought them together and beat them up. They then made me watch as they killed those people. They laid them down in a straight line and killed them one by one. Another female soldier was stabbing them.
Today, many know of Debre Abai. It symbolizes the violence and carnage of occupation by Ethiopian forces and their allies from Eritrea. But it is also just one of a large and systematic violence on civilians in Tigray.
That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.